I want to talk about the bizarre appointment of former Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson to Donald Trump's cabinet as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, despite having previously likened Ben Carson to a child molester. That is weird to say, hey, someone's like a child molester. Hire them to serve on my cabinet. I'll remind you of the clip. Remember this?
He said he's pathological. Somebody said he has pathological disease. Other people said he said in the book, and I haven't seen it, I know it's in the book,
right,
that he's got a pathological temper or temperament. That's a big problem because you don't cure that. That's like, you know, I could say, they'd say you don't cure, as an example, child molester. You don't cure these people. You don't cure a child molester. There's no cure for it.
Not only did Donald Trump liken Ben Carson to a child molester, Carson also has no experience in the field of urban development and housing. He's a neurosurgeon who did inspirational speaking. So I started looking at this, Pat, and I was trying to think, what could there be here that explains appointing Ben Carson as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development? And I thought, well, Trump seems to think that the word urban relates directly to black people, and interchangeably during the presidential debates and the campaign, whenever Trump was asked about minorities, he would talk about inner cities. He would talk about inner cities clearly interchangeably with black people and non-white people. He kept talking about urban also. Maybe because Ben Carson is black and Trump sees that the title Secretary of Housing and Urban Development has the word urban in it. He said, oh, urban, let me get the black guy. I mean, I know it's crazy, but I can't understand why else Ben Carson would be in this position.
Yeah, there are a few other conclusions you can draw to it because Ben Carson's background is in neurosurgery and public speaking. And even though he grew up in Detroit and was the benefit of some of these programs that he's now going to be in charge of,
that's urban.
This life experience alone isn't enough.
It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. And I'll remind you that his spokesperson or business manager or whatever he is, Armstrong Williams, actually said, and we talked about this when it broke, quote, Dr. Carson feels he has no government experience. He's never run a federal agency. The last thing he would want to do was to take a position that would cripple the presidency. And you're going to put him in charge of housing and urban development. And this is a position that really does do important stuff. Number one, the Secretary of HUD administers the FHA's mortgage insurance programs. What on earth does Dr. Ben Carson know about mortgage insurance programs? The Secretary of HUD takes steps to encourage a strong private sector housing industry, which can also produce affordable housing, which is probably something Ben Carson is against because he's against so many of these government subsidies. What on earth does Ben Carson know about the private sector housing industry? The Secretary of HUD employs more than 10,000 workers, and the secretary is the leader of that entire agency. What on earth does Ben Carson know about managing 10,000 workers? This is completely backwards bizarro land.
Luckily, I mean, if you look at the presidential succession line, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is far later. It's like number
12th
15
or something.
Yeah. So there's no chance he's actually going to become president.
So I like what you're doing, Pat. In looking for a silver lining here, the good news is that 11 to 14 people, I think the Secretary of HUD is 12th, 11 people would have to simultaneously be killed before Ben Carson would become president of the United States. That's the silver lining that you found.
And I think the agency is only in charge of about 10,000 people, which compared to other ones isn't as bad.
Okay, well, listen, you're doing a much better job than I am of finding these incredibly obscure silver linings in the appointment of someone like Ben Carson to Secretary of HUD. So there you have it. Sleepy hypnotherapist Ben Carson will be the Secretary of HUD. Those are confirmation hearings I'm actually looking forward to because it's possible that maybe Ben Carson could learn something about this job before those hearings. Send me your thoughts on this. I'm on Twitter at @DPakman. The show is on Twitter at David Pakman Show, and make sure you're following both. Warby Parker is offering a free 5-day home try-on to give you the opportunity to check out their glasses. I personally wear Warby Parker glasses when I'm not wearing my contact lenses, and I also started with one of these free at-home try-ons of 5 pairs of glasses. You can get your free home try-on and support the David Pakman Show at warbyparkertrial.com/TDPS. I don't really like going into glasses stores and trying on glasses while the salesperson sort of hovers over me, and I like more than 30 seconds to actually figure out whether I like the glasses.
So with the Warby Parker home try-on, I was able to pick 5 pairs that I liked, put them on in the comfort of my own home, pick the one I like the most, and then Warby Parker put my prescription lenses in there for me. A lot of people don't know that the eyeglass industry is controlled by just a few big corporations that keep prices very high, like $300 for prescription glasses high, which is just insane. Warby Parker glasses start at $95. That's what mine cost. And for every pair of glasses sold, Warby Parker distributes a pair of glasses to someone in need. You can try 5 pairs and see what you like. Check out the at-home trial and support our show by going to warbyparker.com/TDPS. It costs nothing.